You gave my life to me, set me free, set me free. The finest years I ever lived.
For John, this theme of unity is throughout. The way we're unified with God is through this thing called belief. And so that's like the activation of unity. When we ally ourselves with Jesus, then we are connecting, we're
Mhm.
unifying with God. And this whole cycle of, guess what? Who I am, now you're coming into.
Mhm.
Um, Jesus makes these crazy unifying statements of his unity with God the Father, with these
Mm.
famous I am statements. And we've talked about
Yeah.
that a little bit. I always heard there were traditionally seven famous I am statements. I actually counted 10, um, which are him using in the Greek ego, am I, 10 times where he's copying uh, Yahweh telling Moses, I am that I am. Same verbiage in the Greek when you translate the Old Testament, the Hebrew into the Greek. And he's doing it provocatively. And we know
Mhm.
that it's typically
Mhm.
when he says, when he's basically amplifying the I am. And
Mhm.
we have to realize this isn't just, hey, I want to tell you guys I'm God. What he's saying is there's a unity here that
Mhm.
is that is pretty important. And several times they start trying to kill him when he does that.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
that's just too much for them. They're worried about blasphemy, but what I would say that underpins that worried about blasphemy is actually a desire to maintain status quo. The high priest is like, better that one man die for the country than the whole country lose itself, right?
Mhm.
Jesus is challenging the system, and the system is pushing back hard, hard.
God is inviting us in to his community, completely shatters all the systems outside of it.
It
And
makes it obsolete. It makes it all
they
out.
do.
Everything they are about. Even thinking about the woman at the well that we talked about last week, Jesus is like, hey, the time is coming where you're going to worship not either here or there, but in spirit and truth. And is
Yeah.
now here. Actually, it's here. It's here. I'm embodying that. And we read that and it's like, wow, that's really cool, right? And yet, if you were heavily invested in the system of Second Temple Judaism, it wouldn't be cool. It would be a declaration of war. And that's how, I think that's how
Mhm.
the scribes and the Pharisees feel it. And they push back hard. And our person for today, I think, is a casualty of that war, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's two systems clashing in the evil system. So they're taking an actual human being, an individual, because this woman who was caught in the act of adultery actually was a person. She wasn't
Yeah.
just sort of a particle of evil that had to
Yeah.
be spelled with Lysol.
Yeah.
She's an actual person. And yeah, she's brought up, she's used um, in order for one system to try to defeat the other system. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Can I pause you there for just a second?
yeah,
Because I think what you just said, like she is used. I think that's really poignant, and I think it's absolutely spot on. And I think it's exactly what ultimately broken systems, religious systems being at the forefront, do to people. I mean, you heard it in that quote from the high priest, right? It's like better that one man die. And I've been meditating on the passion narrative the last couple of weeks in my morning time, and it's just struck me like really just the brutality and the abhorrence of the whole thing. Not just the physical brutality, but like the fact that when they take Jesus to Pilate, they don't want to go into Pilate's house because they don't want to be defiled. And I think in that you just see like how screwed up an unhealthy religious system can become. Like they're in the act of committing murder, and yet they're wanting to maintain the semblance of
yeah.
piety.
They're
And
they're
then,
they're getting ready to kill God,
They're getting ready. They're activating their plan to kill God, and yet we're going to maintain piety. We're going to maintain appearance. We're going to maintain the thing that we've convinced ourselves makes us okay. And then, and not to go too far on this tangent, but like it's been speaking to me, you know, post crucifixion or at the tail end of Friday, right? You have these three people hanging on a cross, right? They've already suffered immensely, but the Sabbath is coming, and the priests don't want to look at those bodies hanging on the cross over the Sabbath. So what do? They go to the Romans and they say, "Hey, would you just break their legs?" So it's not mercy. It's just make sure they can't crawl off, right? But we don't want to look at them. So brutalize them further so that we can have a more peaceful Sabbath, right? And I just think, yeah, that, it's like that is what a broken religious system ends up doing to the image bearers of God. And I think you see it, to bring it back to this woman caught in adultery. Like they're not viewing her as a human, right? I don't think they're viewing her as a way to get up and get over on this person that's challenging their status quo. This is not an original thought to me, but like it is a little suspicious that they just happen to catch this woman in adultery as Jesus is, he's in the temple, right? This occurs in the temple, if I remember right. It seems pretty interesting, the timing of the whole thing.
Okay. So you picked this picture of a woman from Afghanistan. So talk a little bit about this picture.
And there's this iconic photo of this teenage girl with her red, scarf over her head. And really, I think the thing that probably has captured millions of people, and myself being one of those, is her eyes. And she is beautiful, but I think the compelling element of the photograph is not just her beauty, but something in her eyes, something that comes out.
I would be mad today I long just to have you back again, just to touch you once again.